And of course, we've got the soaring cost of living as well, just making everybody think a lot more carefully about anything that they are going to buy these days. You put all these things together, and of course, you get the house prices correcting downward from some pretty stupid levels late last year. But it's not a crash. Hi again, everybody. Last week I spoke about the misreporting of an 18% fall in Auckland house prices. It's actually only about 5% or so. And I also spoke about the change in the nature of the commentary generally you'll be getting from the media now that they have shifted away from focusing on prices up 25-30% on a year ago to prices actually falling. Just a bit of a warning there that the media do tend to overplay whatever is happening in the market and not get yourselves overly pessimistic about what's happening with prices. Unless, of course, you're a fresh young buyer, then you do want prices to fall until you buy, and then you don't really want it to happen any longer. Now, this week I just want to quickly give a reminder as to why house prices are falling and why this is not a crash. Don't be thinking that we're going to see prices falling away 20, 30 or 40% back to where they were before the pandemic, for instance. Prices have already fallen nationwide about 3% or so in response to quite a few things all coming together at once. One of them is, of course, interest rates have gone up about 2% roughly for the increases in fixed mortgage rates so far. And there might be up to maybe another 1% left for the likes of the 3, 4, maybe 5-year fixed rates there, and a little bit more for the 1-year rate and, of course, for the floating rate as well, which is quite closely attached to the Reserve Bank's official cash rate. There's also the credit crunch underway with the tightening of the loan-to-value ratios, some banks applying debt-to-income ratios, and, of course, the CCCFA, the Credit Contracts and Consumer Finance Act, making getting finance very tough these days, with banks taking a lot more cautious attitude than what they had in the past. We've got net migration outflows from New Zealand. You're going to see a lot more about that and talk of brain drain as the year goes by, so just be aware of that one. We've got increasing house supply. I don't think that's a big element as yet. That's going to be talked about a lot more later this year, especially in Auckland. We've got the borders reopening, so people are shifting back to allocating money to travelling overseas rather than maybe looking to buy a house as soon as possible. And of course, we've got the soaring cost of living as well, just making everybody think a lot more carefully about anything that they are going to buy these days. You put all these things together, and of course, you get the house prices correcting downward from some pretty stupid levels late last year. But it's not a crash. What we have is some big insulation here for house prices from a number of sources. An easy one is the fact that the cost of making a house, the materials, etc., has gone up about 14% in the past year. You're probably going to see the same thing in this year we're in at the moment, with everything that's happening overseas, the closures of factories still in China with their COVID eradication strategy, and of course the interruption from Russia's invasion of Ukraine, commodity prices rising quite strongly. So that's an insulating factor. We're going to see some of the increase in supply I just spoke about not happen because some of the developers are going to be weeded out. Of great significance, anybody who's got a mortgage at the moment, the bank worked out their ability to pay the likes of 6.5%, 7.5%, maybe even 8%. So I don't think we're really going to get interest rates to the crunching level. We have high job security out there, and if you're going to get a housing crash, you need people really worrying about keeping their jobs, unemployment, etc., and that's generally not out there. We also have no wave of investor selling. Although we have the investors not buying, many of them, since March last year because of the tax changes, there is no wave of selling which is coming through. And that's a key element I'm missing out from a lot of the pessimistic views I get that some people have had. There's also, of course, still a backlog of buyers out there. Put it all together, and by no means do those insulating factors prevent prices from probably falling a bit further over the coming year, maybe even into early 2023. But I'm actually scaling back the level to which I think interest rates will go. So that's sort of a positive, I suppose, for the housing market. But overall, we're in a corrective phase for probably all of this year. And then I imagine a number of years when things are relatively flat. On a region-to-region basis, well, then we have to get into a lot more specifics that can't really go into here. But overall, we're in a correction phase, but it is not a crash. But just be aware, in the media, you're going to see some interesting stories along those lines over the next 12 months or so. All the best.